think we're good.
All right. Well, you want me to steer this ship or you want to
Yeah,
take
yeah. You
control?
steer it.
All right.
You're good at steering.
How you doing? It's the strategy show. Dave Lochran, Jake Harry, and we have got ourselves a good amount of games today, but they're split up a little bit. Now, last I looked, we got 10 games overall, and I think it's split to 4 and 6, Jake. Yeah, right. We got 4 games at 1 o'clock, and then maybe we don't have. Maybe
I
they're
think
not
it's
including the 6-10. Let me just make sure.
yeah.
I
I
don't think.
think it's 4 and 5. So Yahoo has all the slates. So they have 10 game slates starting at 105 Eastern. Looking at DraftKings, they have an all day slate, but the contests probably aren't any good. And then 4 games, 105 Eastern, 5 games. They're including the 640 Eastern game, so we're gonna be pushed up a little bit on our afternoon shows. It looks like.
Okay. Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports. We love them. Sponsoring many of our shows. And there's a very simple way that you can get up to $30 in Yahoo Sports Rewards points, which can be used as currency on the site to win other real currency on the site, real money, US dollars. I know Canadian dollars you can't win on there because you Canadians can't play, but we still have a lot of people in the lower 48 as well. And I don't know about Alaska and but Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports, much lower rate, management fees
Mhm.
than the other sites, and sometimes really none at all. You don't have to worry about going up against somebody that's throwing 150 lineups in. No, that's right. 10 lineups max on their biggest contest, their guaranteed contest. So look, you're not getting the 50 to $100,000 first place prizes, but you're also getting a lot more winnable first place prizes. So your $3 to $4 to $5,000 first place prizes are a lot more attainable than they would seem on DraftKings. And the truth is, Jake, even on sites like DraftKings, if you don't get first place, you're winning $5,000 anyway in second place when first place is 100. So you know
Right. No,
why
you're
not do it with a 3,000 player pool, or a 3,000 player field on Yahoo?
yeah. Might as well compete against less people, less entries, and honestly less pro players over there. I mean, you'll see a few of the big names every now and then, but they can only put in 10 lineups, and yeah, they can use an optimizer, but a lot of people won't take the time to transfer over their optimized builds to hand builds. It only takes a few minutes if you do use Fantasy Cruncher. So I've done it a bunch of times, and it's not too difficult. And you can still make quality lineups. You can stack up to 6 people from a team, 6 hitters, which I really like. You can kind of go all in on a team, get some quality one-offs. The pricing isn't too difficult. So yeah, we really do like Yahoo. It's they've just got a lot of good stuff to offer, especially for casual to semi-serious players to even very serious players. If you're trying to make a profit, there's no better place than Yahoo. I think right now. I think pretty much everyone at the site agrees.
All right, I just dropped the link in the chat. Use the code AWESEMO to get up to $30 in Yahoo Sports Rewards points. Hope to see you over there. Okay, so Jake, here's the deal. We'll start with the early slate.
Okay.
We'll hit them both because there's only basically we'll cover 9 games in total, and we do have an early lock tonight. So the deeper dive, live before lock, they're going to be going off before they normally would. We're gonna be starting a little bit earlier. We did this at a point last week. It may have been last Thursday actually
Mhm.
that we saw a similar slate to this. We want to make sure that we can get you guys as much content and as much time for the content as possible. That's what we do here at awesemo.com. So let's uh let's get into it first. 4 1 o'clock games. And once again, to be clear, on FanDuel and DraftKings, you do have these 4 game slates. I know Yahoo, as you mentioned, does a lot of things differently. And I think all of their, yeah, right. Okay. So they only have the full slate or the like all day slate or the night slate, it looks like.
So they basically
Yes, they
here,
do.
yeah, they run a ton of different slates. So I think their main slate is going to be
chopping off the 640 game.
Right. So their main slate's going to be 4 games.
Right.
Um,
And
where
they did that last week too.
Yep. Yep. I kind of like that. And then they've
Yeah.
got one that starts at 6:10 Eastern as well. That's a 6-gamer. So you're not short on options as far as slate sizes on Yahoo today, even though the games are kind of at funky times.
All right, Jake, let's do it. Philly and Milwaukee. This is a 4-game set. Philly's pitching has kind of crumbled over the past couple of days. Jake Arrieta has been wild. Jared Eichhoff with his first pretty underwhelming start of the season. Now they get Zach Eflin on the mound, who has been nothing short of excellent, right? I mean, this guy, while he's not getting a ton of strikeouts, he's gone complete game in 2 of his last 3 starts, won a complete game shutout, 7 one-run innings the game in between that. He's pitching super deep into games. He literally started and finished 2 of his last 3. Meanwhile, Zach Davies, on the other side of this game, has been a very, very solid real-life pitcher this season. But from a fantasy standpoint, you'd be hard-pressed to find him, producing this good of fantasy totals going forward or being able to sustain it. So implied run totals here for the Brewers, 4.2. For the Phillies against Davies, 4.7. And as I like to add, because I think it's important during day games especially, the weather on Thursday is going to be around 72 degrees at Citizens Bank Park.
Yeah, so pretty good hitting weather. Good weather all around. Like we mentioned a couple of times, it's tough to pitch too when it's 40 degrees like it is sometimes around the country. So yeah, Eflin's been good. Davies has been usable at least. Looking at these guys' prices on Yahoo, 37 for Eflin, 36 for Davies. I think it's a pretty easy choice as far as which guy I'm going to have more exposure to over there. On DraftKings is a little bit more difficult with the $2,100 price gap. I think Eflin is fine here, but it also is a really scary matchup against Milwaukee. So they're like around average as far as WRC plus goes against righties so far this season. They do have a lot of strikeout upside, but it's not like Eflin has been racking up strikeouts. I mean, he has 3, 5, and 7 his last 3 starts, and they were all really solid starts. You were happy if you played him, all that kind of stuff. He's got a solid chase rate, but just a 9% swinging strike rate. And if you can't really get swings and misses against this Brewers lineup with frequency, you could be in really big trouble if they roll out their normal guys, the Yelich, Kane, Moustakas, Aguilar, Grandal, those type of guys. So for me, I think I'm more on Brewers bats than Eflin. But I do respect Eflin. Like, if the Brewers are going to be the chalkiest stack by a mile on the early slate, I'd probably go underweight. But yeah.
Yeah, and another thing too, just to add on to what you're saying, Eflin has always been much or markedly better against righties than he is against lefties. The other day against, was it Eichhoff? I can't remember if it was Eichhoff or if it was yesterday against Arrieta. I think it was Arrieta. Yeah, I had mentioned this point to Adam that there was a heavier righty lineup than you would normally see. There was no Eric Thames in the lineup. There was no Travis Shaw in the lineup. So you had only like 2 or 3 lefties through it. Oh, and no Yasmani Grandal. I think they only had 2 lefties in the entire lineup, Moustakas and Yelich, which is strange, not something you see very often. If that's the case again today, I don't think it will be, right? Like Yasmani Grandal was, I'm assuming, just getting a routine day off, right?
Mm-hmm.
Unless there's something I don't. What's that?
He came in early for Pena.
Yeah, because Pena got hurt, right? Pena's on the IL now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then Thames probably be back in it. I don't know. We know Shaw is on the IL, but this season, Eflin's holding righties to a 234 WOBA and a sub 100 ISO. Like, those numbers have been good. He's not striking them out a lot, though. And with lefties, he's still getting hit relatively hard, giving up a decent amount of power. I'm with you. It depends on the Milwaukee lineup, how much I'm going to have of Milwaukee. But I'm pretty certain that I'm not going to have much of Zach Eflin.
Yeah. If I am going to Eflin, it's probably on Yahoo. I think that's where he's priced the most appropriately for the matchup. But yeah, I think I agree with you. More more on Brewers bats here than anything.
Yeah, I will say he has done such a good job of preventing hard contact, though. Sub 30% hard hit rate against lefties and righties this season. If there's one thing Eflin's done to mitigate the low K rate, is the contact that hitters are making has been terrible contact. So, um, again, like you pointed out, 9% swinging strike rate, 28% called plus swinging strike rate. Those numbers are not good enough, from my opinion, to pay 9K for a guy unless he's facing the Marlins. And I honestly feel confident that he can go 8 or 9 innings.
Yeah, exactly. So,
what do you make of Davies?
at 7K, he's probably going to be in play. I mean, another terrifying matchup against the Phillies, but he has been more of a real life pitcher. Like, he's a guy that I'll use on short slates if I need super expensive bats. The problem is if I'm not going to Philly on DK, I don't know that I'm going to need to spend down at pitcher. You know what I'm saying? So, like, Davies would be a guy I would go to if there were super expensive bats I want to pay up elsewhere. Maybe KC. Like, you're seeing a couple guys at 5K and above. But, like, I'm not looking at a ton of expensive stacks. A couple guys on Texas that I want to target. So I don't know that I'm going to need to get to Davies on this early slate. The couple guys I really like are obviously Harper for 4,600. I don't know what's going on with that price. Same thing with McCutchen, and then I think Rhys Hoskins is priced more appropriately at 5,200. So there's a few guys I'm cherry picking. I don't know that I'm going all out stacking against Davies here.
Yeah, I mean, you have to think, maybe I'm wrong, but you would have to think that Davies runs face first into some regression here. I mean, the guy has a 10% K rate against lefties. Get this, a negative 3.5% K minus BB rate. Like, that's not good at all, Jake. I mean, these are rough numbers, and he's allowing half a home run per 9.47. He has a 246 BABIP. Oh, a 48% fly ball rate, and a 688 xFIP. How he could run into some trouble here. The only thing is there aren't a lot of lefties in this Phillies lineup, but I still think he's been pretty lucky to start the year.
Yeah, not a ton of strikeouts either. They're below average striking out against righties. I mean, obviously a lot of power on Philly. I don't think it's the matchup for him. If I end up with like 5% of him out of my 150, I'm not gonna like X him out or anything.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I played Jose Urena yesterday,
Oh,
and
yeah.
he gets no strikeouts, so I'm not opposed to it. But if Urena's 5,300, and I think that he can get me deep enough into a game, whether or not he does is besides the point. But he ended up going 6 with 1 run and only 2 strikeouts. He got the loss. They lost 1-0. But, if Urena had gotten the win there, the extra 4 points, you're looking at a pretty solid game,
Yeah.
And I think you could say the same about a lot of these guys. If they're cheap, even if they don't miss a lot of bats, sometimes you're just looking for them to give you 6-7 innings and not collapse. If you're getting 5 or so % of them, you're just hoping to avoid complete disaster.
Yep.
So, yeah, he does have the second lowest swinging strike rate, third lowest of any team on this day, not the slate, but of any team on the entire day.
Yikes.
So, yeah, that's pretty fun. All right, and I agree with you on Bryce Harper. It's probably a spot where he's been horrible, but
Yeah. I mean, tough first couple months in Philadelphia for him, but I would imagine he would turn it around. I'm sure he's still making some quality contact here and there. But like, you look at the game logs, there's like a couple spikes here and there, but a lot of like 2s and 0s and
look at the strikeouts.
5s. Yeah, he is striking out quite a bit. Wow. So just in a slump right now. I don't think either of us are worried about him long term. Are you?
No,
So Philly's your team too, right? So
yeah, he's just swinging at some really like inexplicable pitches, and that's the one thing I look at. I'm like, what are you doing? How do you have a 32% K rate against opposite-handed pitching? Like that, to me, against righties, you're striking out 32% of the time. It's kind of crazy, man. But
yeah.
I don't know. He should turn it around eventually. He's still hit, like you said, he's still hitting the ball hard. Uh, he's still putting the ball in the air. It's just, something's got to turn around eventually for him.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll have he'll have this big slump, and then he'll have 10 homers in a week, and
Right, exactly.
everyone will
And by
forget
the
about
way,
it.
I before we move on, I do love Yelich if you can pay for him.
Oh yeah,
I
absolutely,
really like Yelich here.
love it.
Anything else, Jake, before we go to the next one?
I think I'm good on this game.
All right. Washington, New York Mets, Zach Wheeler, Anibal Sanchez. So I honestly feel like pitchers have been hitting the lottery facing Miami lately. We saw it with Wheeler. Uh, Jalen Beeks was yanked after like 30 pitches in 3 innings
Yeah,
or something yesterday. But Wheeler coming off that last start against Miami, 7 2-run innings with 11 Ks. Uh, if there's one thing that's really wonderful about Wheeler is he can pitch deep into games. And, I think it's something we don't pay enough attention to sometimes. Like, how many pitches per innings do these guys average? Wheeler's done a great job of keeping that number low and getting deep into starts. Anibal Sanchez, on the other hand, Jake, has not pitched more than 5 innings since April 13th. So take this one away. Implied totals for both teams. Washington Nationals at 4.2. New York Mets are at 4.9 against Sanchez.
yeah. I think Wheeler's the guy that's maybe I don't know if he's most interesting to talk about, but he's the guy that I want to target. I think the most heavily on this early slate. He really stands out to me. I think he's going to stand out to a lot of people. Projects really well for me. I mean, like you mentioned, goes deep into the games. 6 straight starts of 6 innings plus. He's got the double-digit K upside. He's done that 3 out of his last 4. Yeah, there some easier matchups, but you look at the numbers for the active roster for I keep wanting to say the Capitals, the Nationals. I'm still
Dude,
in
I
hockey
do it
mindset.
all. I do it all the time.
Yeah.
All the time.
20,
You're coming off hockey season.
yeah.
I call them their basketball team names. You're calling them the hockey team names.
Wizards,
Yeah.
Nationals, whatever they are.
Yeah.
They have a nearly 25% K rate, 77 WRC plus, and then you'd think they'd have a bunch of power against righties, and Rendon was out for a while, so maybe that hurt them. But a 135 ISO, that's bottom 5 in the league,
Yeah,
bottom
it's been
3 in
bad.
the league against righties. So the Nats just
Absolutely.
haven't been good, and Wheeler has been the exact opposite. Wheeler's been spectacular, so he's the guy I want to target the most heavily. If there's a guy I'm going against him with, or a couple guys, it would be the obvious ones, Soto and Rendon. But yeah, I think Wheeler's going to rack up strikeouts here and probably go another 6+ innings and be one of the highest raw point pitchers on this slate.
I don't disagree with you at all. Um, I mean, and they did a few days ago, but getting Juan Soto back is definitely helpful. I mean, when he was out, this was a really, really rough team. But you're still down Trey Turner. You're still down. I think he's in a rehab assignment now. Yeah. You're still down Matt Adams, who has some Ks, but also some power. You're down Ryan Zimmerman. Like this team has been down so many players throughout the year. Having Rendon healthy, having Soto healthy, definitely benefits. But you mentioned you mentioned their active roster, not their team. You mentioned the active roster, which is still well below average in a lot of respects, and it's pretty remarkable. You talk about their 135 ISO. What about their 77 WRC plus, which is 29th in the league, ahead of only the Miami Marlins?
Yikes. Yeah. I mean, just bad all the way around on a team
Yeah.
level.
Yeah,
Um,
and a top 10 K rate against righties as well.
yeah.
7th actually.
Yeah, so their team, I mean, where else would you go if Wheeler's not your number one, and it's hard to poke holes in him. I don't really see anyone else that's even coming close to challenging him. Maybe Eflin if you kind of believe in that, but I don't think we're believing that he's kind of an ace, where I think Wheeler has been starting to turn the corner for the better part of a year now.
Honestly, man, you might think I'll get there in a second because it's their next game. But what are your thoughts on hitters here before we do?
Yeah, I mean, some of these Mets I like. I mean, Conforto at 4,700, probably a little bit overpriced. It'll be tough to get to him, or tough to get to some of these guys, Alonso, Conforto, if you are going with Wheeler. But I like the Mets stack here. I mean, Annabelle's had issues going deep into games, as you mentioned. The Nationals have the second highest WHIP as a bullpen this season. They're not getting strikeouts. So I like the Mets stack here quite a bit.
Okay. Yeah, I don't dislike that whatsoever. I feel like did they just face Sanchez in like a home and home? Who
Let's
who
see.
did he just face? I swear he was just. I guess it, I
He
guess it
hasn't
was the
faced the Mets
Dodgers.
yet this year. Yeah,
I
he
guess it was
got
the Dodgers.
beat up pretty good by LA. Actually, only allowed
Yeah,
three earned runs, but two homers. He just can't go deep. I mean, he's gone over 5 innings, or he's gone over 5 innings 3 times, but
yeah,
none in his
and,
last four starts.
and he's gotten through 6 innings once this season.
Hmm.
So, not particularly encouraging. I think I agree with you. The Mets here are pretty interesting. Uh, I just have too much respect for Wheeler to have any interest in Washington. Maybe like a Juan Soto one-off on a 4-game slate. I don't hate that, but I was also surprised to see their total was 4.2. I thought it'd be lower. You talk about, who can you go to up top? We get to Oakland and Detroit, and your totals for this game. You have the Detroit Tigers at 4.2. So, pretty much in line with the other teams that have the lower totals on this slate. And the Oakland Athletics are at 4.9. So I actually have interest in. I would never pay for him on a bigger slate, but I actually have some interest in Chris Bassett. You know, he has a 31% K rate against lefties this season, 31.9 against righties. So basically, his K rate across the 24 and two-third innings he's pitched in total is 32%. He's not walking a lot of batters. He's got a sub-1 WHIP right now, 12% swinging strike rate, 31.2% called plus swinging strike rate. Chris Bassett is all he's getting ground balls. He's not excuse me, he's not giving up hard contact, super low xFIP. Like Chris Bassett has actually looked good. And while I normally wouldn't be chomping at the bit to roster someone like this, not necessarily knowing if it's totally real, you're talking about a Detroit Tigers team that is striking out at a league high clip against righties. The highest in the league. Actually, now they're below the Padres, but second highest in the league with an 80 WRC plus and a sub 300 WOBA. I think Bassett's in play here uh, on a 4-game slate that doesn't offer all that much.
No, I think this would be the number two guy for me. You look at like all the advanced numbers, the chase rate, the swinging strike rate. Those are all well above average. 34% chase rate, 12% swinging strike rate for the season. Hasn't really had a hiccup in his first four starts, and he's not even getting a lot of first pitch strikes, so he's not getting ahead a lot and still doing this, which is
Yeah.
even more impressive. Good matchup. The issue is, and maybe you can get past this on a 4-game slate, is his ownership. Right now, we have him projected as the highest owned player on the early slate on DraftKings.
That's
On
crazy.
yeah,
I didn't even look at ownership yet. That's wild, Jake.
on FanDuel, he
Hmm.
is okay. He's 20%. That's not terrible. But yeah, higher owned than Wheeler, which I was a little bit surprised to
Ooh.
see. This was my first look. But yeah, I mean, those guys are kind of in a range by themselves, and then it's a huge drop off after that. So for me, I would stick with Wheeler if you can afford the $1,400. But once I start crunching, I guess I'll know if the 1,400 is going to make a huge difference.
Yeah, it's tough. M- I I'd be hard pressed to say that they don't come in very, very, very similar in ownership today. But I also would agree with you that Wheeler is probably a more reliable pitcher than Chris Bassett.
Mhm.
Um, I just love the missed bats that we're seeing generated from Bassett, and the Tigers being a team that is going to facilitate those type of games for sure. I mean, they will they will swing and miss a lot. And by the way, for anyone that doesn't know a whole lot about Bassett, wondering what his arsenal is, this season you're seeing a pretty decent mix between the four seamer, the two seamer, the curveball, the slider. He's mixed the change in there too, but he's doing a lot of damage with all of them. The big thing though, his four seam fastball is getting 15.3% whiffs, 28% whiffs per swing, which is a really high number for a four seamer. You generally don't see something that high. Uh, and the changeup, slider, mostly the curve though, are all getting whiff rates in the double digits. Curve at almost 20%. So it has been interesting this year, Jake, and the ownership kind of shows us that people are starting to catch on to Bassett probably being a decent pitcher.
For sure. So I thought maybe we'd be able to jump on him as I was looking through some of his stuff.
Yeah.
At somewhat low ownership for a four gamer, but it looks like people have figured this out. And if you take one look at the game logs and you see the matchup against Detroit, it makes sense that he would be one of the chalkier pitchers on the slate. So I get it. I'm not like avoiding him, but I'm probably going to come in underweight on 45 to 50% if that's where he's going to end up.
All right. What are your thoughts on a guy like Spencer Turnbull, who, look, I'm surprised, but through 8 starts, he's averaging right around a strikeout per inning, 9 Ks per 9, and has actually pitched pretty well this season. He's got a date with the Oakland Athletics, who are definitely a more potent team at the plate than the Detroit Tigers. But I want your take on Turnbull, just given that the ownership disparity. He's coming in right now with exactly half the projected ownership of Bassett. Is there any way you could get to a guy like Turnbull today?
Yeah, Turnbull's been good against righties. Just looking at the
Yep.
quality of contact he's given up, 27% hard contact to righties. That's really impressive.
Yeah.
It sticks out. I mean, I think he's a fine option on DraftKings. I mean, similar to Bassett, I don't know that he's got the same kind of upside, and it's a much scarier matchup than Bassett gets. But I'm trying to find. I'll just do a Control V search, see where he's at. Okay, so he's up there. He's the 4th highest owned pitcher on DK in the early slate. I don't have an issue with that. I think I prefer him over Lance Lynn if Lance Lynn's going to be chalkier than him. So, yeah, I don't mind Turnbull. The one guy you're really worried about, is Matt Olson at 3,800. So I'm probably going to have a ton of Olson in my non-Turnbull lineups. But just as a strict pivot off of Bassett, yeah, I definitely have some interest in Turnbull. If I am targeting a ton of Oakland hitters, well, it would be Olson one-offs or maybe Chris Davis one-offs. But I also really like the full stack if you're not playing Turnbull because while we do respect him, the Tigers bullpen is really, really bad. 3rd highest whip on the season, just a K rate just over 20%. They've just got some real issues. So I'm kind of talking out of both sides of my mouth there, but I do think there's merit to playing both hitters in this game and playing Turnbull.
I don't disagree with you at all. What's kind of interesting is the only 2 pitchers on this entire slate that aren't getting any ownership, or at least, getting significantly less ownership, would be Homer Bailey and Zach Davies. And we'll get to Bailey in a moment. But like right now we have Eflin, Turnbull, Sanchez, and Lance Lynn all between 23 and 25%. So pretty much wherever you go, unless you're going with Bailey or Davies, you're not going to be on an island. And I don't think anyone would expect to be on a 4-game slate. But I also do think that Turnbull, especially at 8K, comes in at a lower cost. On FanDuel, you're talking about Bassett being 10K, Jake. He is your most expensive pitcher on FanDuel. I mean, that's remarkable that a month and a half into the season, he's more expensive than Zach Wheeler. So I'm not surprised to see that Wheeler has higher ownership projection than he does on FanDuel at all, and that guys like Turnbull down at 9% and Lance Lynn at 14. On DraftKings, it's a lot different though, because not only are they similarly priced, but you have to play two of them.
Yep. And then on Yahoo also, Bassett at 38, Turnbull 42. So for me, it's a super easy decision over there. I'm sure the ownership reflects it. But I'll just take the savings with Bassett in a better matchup. And then Wheeler at 46, I would imagine he's really chalky on Yahoo on the all-day slate. But I think on the all-day slate, you do have Bauer and Castillo as well. So you've got a bunch of more quality options on Yahoo if you are playing the all-day slate.
I really think there's some value though to stacking Oakland though. And you had talked about it a little bit. Here's why. Chris Davis is super cheap, and most of these guys are really discounted. Olsen 3,800 on DK, Matt Chapman 4,200, Davis 4,100, Piscotty is 3,600. Like, these guys are dirt cheap.
Yeah.
I know that a lot of them have not been swinging a hot bat right now, but Detroit's bullpen, as you alluded to, has the second highest xFIP in the league. They're allowing the third most home runs per nine at 1.65. Their 8.17 Ks per nine ranks third worst in baseball. Like, by almost every metric, the Tigers bullpen is one to target or one to pick on. If Turnbull doesn't get deep into this game, you're going to start to see the floodgates open up, I would think.
Yeah, they are also dirt cheap on Yahoo too.
Yep.
Olsen 15, Davis 15, Piscotty 12, Profar 11, Laureano 10, Chapman 18, and then Semien 14 if you leading off. That lineup's already confirmed. So just so much value on Oakland. You're going to get leverage if you play Turnbull. So like just for that reason alone on a short slate, that's fine. But hard to imagine he just has a clean game here, and I just think you're probably going to need something from Oakland unless things just go really, really right for Turnbull.
Right, and despite any of their struggles, or a down period in hitting, it's still an athletics team that has plenty of power.
Yep.
That I'm not worried about their ability to hit for power. All right, let's get to the last one here. 105 lock on this slate, by the way. This game's 1:15 p.m. Eastern time. Kansas City and Texas. Lance Lynn, Homer Bailey. A battle of the juggernauts here. You've got the Royals with a total of, where are we at?
I'm seeing
5-1.
I'm seeing both at 5-3. Have you seen the weather for this game?
You got it up to 5-3. Okay, so some clear high totals here. Definitely, you're right. They both moved up to 5-3. Both the highest on the slate, and it's coming at Kauffman Stadium, where it was really warm there yesterday. It's going to be 85, 86 degrees during this game. Winds blowing out the center field at 15 miles per hour. Look, it's not Wrigley, but this is, given the wind, this is like as good as hitting weather as you can get right now. And you've got a gas cannon Bailey on the mound, who once in a while will have some decent starts. I mean, hell, I rostered him against the Phillies, so I can't talk too much shit on him. And then Lance Lynn on the other side, who has, historically labored against left-handed hitting. What do you make of these pitching matchups and how the hitters should fare in this matchup?
Yeah, I'm just surprised to see how solid Lance Lynn has been, even from like a DFS perspective. He's got a game with 9 strikeouts. I mean, I just assumed to look at him, and I haven't looked at him a ton this season for whatever reason, but yeah, he actually has been much better than I expected. Bailey, so I understand why Lynn is chalky, first of all, on DK. I think I'm going to try to get away from that. He's probably going to be one of my bigger stands that I'm going to take. Just a huge total against him. I don't think he deserves around 30% ownership or whatever he's at. And I really like Mondesi. Nicky Lopez at 3,300. He's a guy that's going to be popular just because he's 2-hole 3,300 against a guy with huge splits for his career. Same thing with Gordon. So I like some of these Royals bats. I was also looking at the speed here, and for whatever reason, I thought that Lynn was really bad at holding runners for his career, but it's actually the exact opposite. He's been
Oh yeah, he's
pretty
very
good.
been very good. But
Yeah,
keep in mind, he had Yadier Molina behind the plate with him for his first like 100 seasons
that's
in,
true.
the league.
That's true. And short sample this season, one stolen base allowed. So it's not like he can't do it. And Mondesi and Merrifield would pretty much run on anyone. So I'm not saying the speed game is completely gone. And if they get him out of the game, there could be stolen bases against guys in the bullpen too. So um, I think the prices for KC are justified. I like KC quite a bit as a stack, especially if you're getting leverage on Lynn. And then I haven't run crunches yet, but I know I'm going to end up with a good amount of Homer Bailey. Um, I would imagine these Texas bats are pretty chalky. Everybody is going to want to play Gallo here, I would imagine. Uh,
Gotta be.
Man, they're not even that far up there on DK. I mean, Gallo's around 20%. Chu, yeah, I mean, maybe they're not as chalky as I thought, but I would imagine that comes up, right? Like, everyone loves picking on Homer Bailey. It's not like
Gotta
he's
be.
been great. Um, he can get swings and misses, though, and if you can do that against Texas and you're getting leverage on a short slate, I think I'm somewhat interested in Bailey. So I'm probably going to come in overweight wherever he ends up at, as long as he's not, like, creeping up to 30+% or something like that.
Yeah, our uh Awesome's top stacks, the stack tool that we reference quite a bit here on the deeper dive on the strategy show, uh, pretty much across all of our shows, isn't updated yet. But pay attention to that because that gives you some great insight into what stack's going to be the highest owned, which one has the highest probability of being the best stack on the day, and and the probability or the likelihood of being the top value as far as stacks go. You have that for Yahoo, for DraftKings, and for FanDuel. You can find it on awesomeo.com, along with our ownership projections that we've referenced all day. And keep an eye out too. Once in a while, we'll post the ownership projections for free, so you can get a look behind the curtain. Player projections, of course, the Fantasy Cruncher add-on, the lineup builder. There's so much more articles from myself, from Adam, from Jake, from Josh, from Ben, of course, from Awesomeo, Alex Baker, his rankings, projections, and all the great articles that he puts out each and every week. So anything I'm missing, go check it out for yourself. And when you do, use the promo code Deeper Dive. Oh, you know what? It's not Deeper Dive because this is not the Deeper Dive, Jake. Uh, it is MLB Strategy, one word, MLB Strategy, to get 50% off your first month. Honestly, if you used Deeper Dive, it wouldn't matter. It would just look like I got somebody to sign up for the deeper on, but from watching the Deeper Dive when it was through or the strategy show. But MLB Strategy is the promo code to get half off your first month. And when you do, say what's up in premium Slack chat. We all hang out in there pretty much around the clock. There's always somebody talking any sport. So we hope to see you over there. That's awesomeo.com, and that's what we do. Come support us and win some money. All right, Jake, like I said, we don't have the stack tool up yet, but my guess is that both of these teams, when you get their collective ownership, is probably going to be, I mean, how could it not be the highest though? Maybe Oakland will be up there just because they're so cheap, but I don't know. Looking at this slate, you have to think there's going to be quite a bit. Both teams with 5.3 totals.
Yeah, I would imagine. I don't know if Alex has been updating it for early slates. I hope he does, because I think the top stack in this last week has quickly become my favorite tool on the site. So I use everything on the site. Like, I use the projections. I use the
Great tool, isn't it?
I mean, it's such a good quick visual for, okay, who should I be stacking? Who should I be overweight on? Who's going overowned? Who's going undervalued? And it's just it. I don't know. I've made money on it too. So maybe I'm just running hot, or maybe the tool's running hot. But it just gives you a lot of very quality information, and you can export it, and then I can just see based on the red or green who is overowned, who's underowned, and you can make a quick tool by yourself in Excel. So I hope he does. But yeah, I would imagine these two teams are up near the top. The ownership's going to be the question. It actually looks like KC, some of their hitters are actually higher owned. So one of these stacks is going to be considered over owned, I would think. And right now it's probably looking like KC. Maybe they both are. But yeah, I'm interested to see what that looks like if we get it.
All right. So am I. You know, this slate, we're moving on to the next one, but I want to just kind of put a bow on it, Jake. Mm-hmm. So we've got Milwaukee, Philly, Washington, New York, Detroit, Oakland, and Kansas City, Texas. We've gone through all of these games. Right now, what do you see being, your biggest stand to get away from? I think you mentioned maybe Lynn and roster construction. I know you probably haven't done all of your crunches yet. We can do that at the end of the show. But since it is the early slate and we won't be having a ton of early slate content, we'll try and cover this as much as we can. What type of build do you see working the most? And do you see yourself going to Wheeler more, like you'd said earlier?
Yeah, I think Wheeler is going to be the guy I end up on most. So I'm probably foregoing a lot of Texas. I think I'm more on KC just because of the leverage it gets you. I can find myself getting on to some of these Phillies, especially like Harper and McCutchen at the top. But I think a lot of my lineups, like 60, 70, 80% of my lineups are going to end up with Wheeler, depending on where we have him projected at. I just can't imagine me not getting to a ton of him. So for those reasons, I'm going to get a bunch of Bailey because I also like some of these expensive bats. And yeah, I'm just going to kind of let it ride. I just have Wheeler as the best option by a pretty good margin. And it's going to force me to also get some leverage against Bassett, even though I don't necessarily love it. We didn't talk about Detroit that much, but you can basically always play Castellanos and then Christian Stewart for 3,800. So I don't know. It's pretty ugly, some of these Detroit bats, but I'm assuming I'm going to end up there.
Yeah, and like you said, Stewart's always a pretty decent play. Castellanos is cheap. Nico Goodrum's cheap. He's got multi-position eligibility. So, if you did want to stack them and you need the salary relief, going to very expensive Texas bats or equally expensive bats out of Kansas City, then that can be done. By the way, did you see that on DraftKings, Hunter Pence is 5,500?
Yeah, someone mentioned that in chat, and I forgot to bring it up.
That is insane.
So he's actually, I know I just seen people on Twitter talking about him in spring training and stuff. He's actually been quite a bit better, and he's hitting for more power.
He's been good, yeah, but that's ridiculous.
I mean, this guy was literally 2,900 the last couple of years because he just couldn't hit it all. And yeah, he was hitting in AT&T or whatever that park's called now. But yeah, that's just a really weird price, righty against Bailey even.
Yeah, I still have a difficult time with him being $1,300 or $1,200 more than Juan Soto, like that.
900 more than Harper.
Yeah, right. 200, and he's almost the same price as Christian Yelich. So,
yikes.
I don't know. The reason I mention that is, if he's in the middle of the Texas lineup, is he? I don't think it's out yet, is it? No,
I don't think so.
We're only waiting on 2 lineups.
Yeah, we're gonna have basically all the information possibly by the time we're done with the main slate, which is nice.
Ben Gamel's leading off for the Brewers. Interesting.
So
Gamel, Yelich, Braun, Moustakas, Grandal. So when I mentioned getting lefties in there, you went from 2 yesterday to Gamel, Yelich, Moustakas, Grandal, and Thames in the top 7. That's 5 lefties in the top 7. That lineup to me becomes so much more appealing now with the lefties towards the top and middle of that order. Man, that's hard to get away from.
They did a good job with the Milwaukee lineup, but definitely agree. So Pence, we have him projected as one of the lowest owned players in the slate. So I'm not saying I'm not going to play the dude, especially if I get to some KC stacks. I'm probably going to end up stacking every team in some fashion. He's going to be super low owned. It's not like you can't hit a home run and you're looking for raw points on the slate.
What I'm saying is it's harder to get to Texas stacks when Gallo and Pence equal 11-2. That's a lot.
even like the secondary pieces too. Like look at the 6 and 7 projected hitters, Cabrera and
Right.
Forsythe, or whether it's Odor. Those guys aren't like free either. So 4,200 and 4,600 for Cabrera and Forsythe. Those guys are in. That makes it even tougher to stack, especially if you're trying to get to a guy like Wheeler.
Right. Exactly. So, hopefully Willie Calhoun's batting second again. And, him and Odor, you can play them both. You don't have to, they're not both only at second base. That will hopefully open some stuff up.
Sure.
But again, and I don't want to spend too much time on this, but I know this is, kind of the only early slate analysis we're going to have. That's why like stacking Oakland or stacking Detroit can make so much sense, because it allows you to get some Kansas City stacks or Texas stacks into your lineups.
Yep.
Yeah, and maybe Milwaukee too. All right. What's Ben Gamel? Ben Gamel is 3,600 leading off.
He is $8 on Yahoo.
8 on Yahoo. That's not bad.
Yeah.
All right.
Pretty good.
Ura is 35 on DraftKings, so you're getting some discounted price points there. All right, I think we covered it. Pretty comprehensive analysis for the early. What do you say we take it to the night slate, to the main slate?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So 5 games, 4 games if you're playing on Yahoo. That starts at 7:20 Eastern. Other than that, we're talking about a 5-game slate here. All right. Oh, look at that. They're doing a 18th hole special.
Huh. For what?
For baseball. I didn't know the early one was called the 18-hole special, assuming for the PGA Championship.
Oh, yeah. Did you play any PGA DFS?
I totally forgot, man.
No.
I was so mad. I didn't get home from hockey till like 11:45. By the time I got out of the shower and like sat down, it was 12:15, and I just totally forgot. I was trying to update my spreadsheets for today for this show, but I just was like, my eyes were shutting on me. Did you get any in?
I did, yeah. I fired them up last night. I don't know anything about PGA, but we've got good content on the site, so did a few quick skims, checked out Slack, and ran my crunch. And so I've got 150. I have no clue how they're doing it, honestly.
What'd you put them in?
What's that?
What contest?
Oh, just the mini max.
Cool.
Yeah,
cool.
I'm not playing, like, I don't even play that for baseball usually, like the
You're not going to do it for a sport you don't know is what you're saying?
Yeah, so I just wanted to, I just like throwing 150 in a volatile sport like that because it's
fun. Oh, yeah.
On Sunday. So.
And what's fun about it is, even though I missed it, they run some monster prize pools for the like Friday slates.
Showdown too on Sunday for the Masters.
Yeah,
that was nice.
Yeah, and for the for the weekend, I bet there's gonna. So I didn't totally miss out, but I do kind of enjoy. I do enjoy the scoring that you get for the standings for where you're ranked.
Mm-hmm.
Because after that you're not first, second, third. It doesn't really count, which I guess is good because you're just getting points for birdies and you know what I mean, and for actual scoring, not for where you're ranked. So I don't know. I'm definitely going to get some in. I just totally forgot. And I was pretty upset with myself, but I digress.
You'll have multiple chances throughout the weekend to get some action down.
And you know what? It's probably a good thing that I forgot. Like it's probably a good thing because I'm not great at PGA.
Yeah, I'm sure I'll be wishing I forgot in about 2 hours. And Jason does Showdown content as well. He does Showdown write-ups, so you can find those the night before. Jason Rouslin.
Yep. Yeah. Jason Rouslin and Ben Rausa do a phenomenal job
so
at PGA. I actually have had some decent, nothing crazy, but some decent PGA wins over the years, all thanks to our boy Ben Rausa, who, I've been reading his content and I do shows with him. He comes on the Sirius XM show, Awesemo Radio, Saturday, Sunday, 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern Time, Sirius 210 XM 87. Check it out. You will enjoy it. He joins us almost every week.
Yeah.
And, he's so great at the sports that most people don't know, like college basketball. He knows everything about it. Kentucky Derby, guess who came on to handicap the Kentucky Derby?
He's
Ben
just
Rausa.
a well-rounded guy. Super nice dude.
Dude, he really is. And then, of course, for golf as well. And I do the game day show with him for NFL every Sunday.
That's right. Yeah. He's all over
Yeah.
the place.
Ben knows what's up. All right. Cincinnati and Chicago. Again, 4 games on Yahoo, 5 games on FanDuel, 5 games on DraftKings. Cincinnati and Chicago. Luis Castillo, Jose Quintana, Jake. I mean, out of the gate, these are two pitchers that have one of them's been really, really good, and Castillo has rebounded well from last year. Quintana got off to a nasty start, like a crazy, crazy good start this year. He seems to have, come back down to earth a bit. He has faced a couple difficult teams, but in that same breath, he has a 31% called plus swinging strike rate, which is one of the better marks on this slate. But Castillo's at 33.6%. There isn't a single pitcher above 31% on this slate outside of Castillo. 15.7% swinging strike rate, easily the highest on this slate. What do you make of a guy like him in a pretty difficult, at least on paper, matchup against the Cubs in Great American Park?
Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult matchup as far as like power and just like being generally scary. Some of these Cubs hitters, Baez, Schwarber, Bryant. I mean, if they get into one, you're in trouble. And Castillo is a guy who's a power pitcher, so it's not a perfect matchup. But I mean, you look at some of these numbers Castillo has put up the last just couple of games, and I know this was against San Francisco, but against anyone, this is impressive. 41% chase rate, 36.5% chase rate in those two starts, over 21% swinging strike rate in both of those starts. And for the season, he's at a 16% swinging strike rate. And he's also not getting a lot of first pitch strikes. So he's doing this by battling back into counts. I mean, he's just been so impressive to me. And he's going to have blow up starts every once in a while because he does give up a lot of hard contact. And maybe this is going to be one, but I'm playing a lot of Castillo. I know I'm going to get to him a ton. It's not a great park. But I'm hoping that keeps his ownership down, and I honestly don't have issues playing him on really any site tonight.
Yeah, dude. Take a guess what the whiff rate on his changeup is.
Like, I'm trying to think of a standard. Like, standard whiff rate is like, what, like 15, 16%? So his has
Like
got to be.
on a changeup, yeah, like a good mark would be 20 or so,
Okay.
19.
Okay, so he's probably 25, 30.
32.
See,
Dude,
and that's
32% whiff rate, 56% whiffs per swing.
outrageous. I mean, that's got to be
Crazy.
one of the highest of the like
Gotta
of
be.
anyone, any starter at least, right?
Gotta be. Like, and by the way, that can be a mislead. It can be misleading sometimes because it's like, oh, he throws the pitch 5% of the time,
Hmm.
32% usage.
He's so good, man. So good.
Man, that pitch has been like arguably one of the best pitches in baseball. No, not arguably. It has been one of the best pitches in baseball this season, uh, allowing a .011 ISO, not point one, not a 100 ISO, a .011.
That's outrageous. I mean,
Yeah.
that's got to be one of the most unhittable pitches in baseball. I mean, he's just using it so well.
Yes.
So, and
Yeah.
he just like doesn't he throw like 97, 98
Yeah, he sits
fastball?
high 96, 9. I mean, it's God, I can't believe it. The whiff rate against righties is 38% on the pitch, 61% whiffs per swing. I mean, it's just spectacular. You're throwing a 97 mile per hour fastball, and then you have the same arm speed. You get an 86 mile per hour changeup.
Yeah.
Wow.
Man, the guy's just really good, and he's turned the corner a little bit. He's gonna be really awesome for years to come, I think. Uh,
So are you? So I want to ask you, not. I don't want to use the word concerned. I use the word deterred. Are you not deterred by the Cubs here?
no, I think people will be, and so that's
I agree.
it's a 4 implied total, so it's not some of these minuscule totals like you're seeing. If you look at Bauer, I know that game's not on the slate, but like 3.4 for the Orioles. Like it's not one of those where everyone's just gonna target the pitcher against this team with a super low total. He's only a minus 130 favorite about right now. So I don't know. I think for 10-6, people might go elsewhere or might not think it's worth the price. But for me, he's the guy that stands out. Is just like very clearly the best pitcher on this slate, on this main slate. So I have no issue targeting him. I mean, if he gives up a couple of runs, I think you're still going to be fine because he's just so good at missing bats.
Now he is garnering 44% projected ownership right now, which is not low.
That's
32, no, 32% on FanDuel, and of course we don't have him unless you're playing the all day slate on Yahoo. But I mean, he has slate breaking stuff. You know, he could go out there with 40 fantasy points, but given the high ownership, like we know he'll be popular, and people. I thought I was with you. I thought people would be, and granted, this is just a projection on ownership, but I thought people would be more deterred by the park, by the weather, and of course by the matchup. But seemingly isn't the case, and that probably has something to do with the other pitching options on this slate. But what do you make of Jose Quintana this year, tonight? $9,200 on DraftKings, and on FanDuel he's weighing in here at what is he? I got to pull it up. I forgot to pull
on DK.
On FanDuel.
On FanDuel, Quintana is 8,900.
89. Okay. Against the Cincinnati Reds team that they're not particularly good, but they're not horrible either, and they're only striking out around 21.7% against righties this season, which is towards the bottom 10 of the league. What are you doing with Quintana?
I think I'm probably going to be off of Quintana. He's started to fall in this thing again where he's like his swinging strike rate has plummeted his last 4 starts compared to his first 4. He was over 11.1% in his first 4, up to 16.5. And then his last 4, 7.9, 8.3, 6.8, 10.6. And you see some tough matchups in there against Milwaukee, St. Louis, LA, Arizona. So maybe you give him a little bit of a pass, but on DraftKings, I think he's just too expensive for me when I could just get up to a guy that I like a ton better for $1,400 more in Castillo. I mean, I like Casali quite a bit for $3,300 at catcher. I don't think catcher is a really great position tonight, as it usually never is. There's no Gary Sanchez on this slate either. And then Suarez, obviously, $4,900 for him. No problem paying that if I can get up to him. He's one of my favorite bats in the entire slate. And also Quintana's hard hit rate is kind of creeped up there to 37% to righties, where he was doing a good job of limiting hard contact early in the season. He's kind of regressed back into that spot where he was last year that got me to target against him so many times in 2018.
All right. I don't disagree with you. It's a tough spot. So why not just go with a guy in Castillo in the same park in the same weather with, also a tough spot who's better? It's pretty simple. Atlanta, or actually any hitters here?
If you had to target a guy, like, I guess how would you be attacking Castillo? Is he a guy you would full stack against and you just hope he's not locating his fastball well or something like that, and you just do a 4 or 5 man stack of Cubs? Or would you be looking to one off? Because I'm kind of stumped here as to what to do with Cubs bats.
Dude, I don't have better answers than you do on this one. He's really good.
Yeah.
He's really, really good. And the Cubs have been a pretty decent team against righties this year. They rank towards the top of the league in isolated slugging. I think they're like 7th. Good numbers there, and I expect them to fight and have some good plate appearances. But at the same time, Castillo's allowing no power to lefties this year, like at all. He's allowing no power to righties. God, his WOBA to righties is 189. 189. Like, yeah, I don't even know if I want to waste stacks on him. I know it's baseball and it's volatile and anything can happen, but I think I'd rather stack the Reds on the other side, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think I agree with that.
And one of the reasons for that, Great American Ballpark is one of, if not the best righty power park in the league. So I think it gets really interesting when you take a lefty like Jose Quintana in a park like this. He's not going to allow a ton of home runs, but when you look at he's allowed home runs in only 3 games this year, but two of them were multiple home run games. One was 3 allowed to the Brewers, another was 2 allowed to Arizona. So when he's off and when he's missing his spots, Quintana will give up some power. And while since he isn't, the most power laden offense, they have enough here at a good price where I think I'm not opposed to getting there. Great American Ballpark going to be in the high to mid 70s. It's a spot I'm willing to go to. So how are you attacking it?
Yeah, just with Reds bats, I think I'm gonna be very, very light on any Cubs here, especially if no Rizzo, and he's not showing in the projected lineup, depending on which site you look at. And then you're not getting a discount either for these Cubs bats, so
Right.
I think I'm okay just kind of avoiding them, even on a 5 gamer. Castillo is just by far the best pitcher on the slate, and I love getting leverage as much as the next guy, but I just don't see any bats that really I want to get to. Like, I don't see a spot where I'm like, yeah, you got to play Kyle Schwarber, even though he's 3,100. But I think he's going to be the guy that everybody goes to for leverage. So nothing really sticks out.
Yeah, Schwarber would probably be the guy, but yeah, it's just Castillo's really good. Uh, Julio Turan, Adam Wainwright. Earlier in the show, I mentioned that Davies has one of the lowest swinging strike rates on this slate or on the day out of all 10 games. Your lowest swinging strike rate, the only one on the season below 7, Jake, is Adam Wainwright at 6.9. Now, he's actually done a decent job of getting called strikes. 29 called plus swinging strike rate isn't bad, 29%, but he doesn't miss a lot of bats. He puts a lot of balls in play. So now you have him going up against the Atlanta Braves at SunTrust Park, and Julio Turan on the other side, who has been fine this season, striking out more than a batter per inning, and doing, I guess, a better job than usual of limiting home runs. But this one is a game where I don't see myself getting to much pitching. Do you think, though, that Turan against a righty-heavy St. Louis team, of which he's better against righties, is there any merit to considering him here?
There probably is some merit to considering Tehran. It's a fine price for him. Man, just because he's got such big splits for his career, so
Big time.
like just that alone, I think he should be in the conversation. It's not like we're looking at a bunch of fantastic pitching options in games elsewhere, and we kind of both weren't on Quintana very much. So he's going to be a guy I get to. I mean, I'd much rather have him than Wainwright. I don't really have any interest in Adam Wainwright for 7,500. But if the Cardinals do roll out their normal lineup, and assuming they don't stack up lefties somehow, I think Tehran's going to be a guy I just kind of close my eyes and get to a little bit. I love Braves bats here, and I will be playing some Tehran. Maybe I'll play Tehran as like a correlation play with some of my Braves bats. Hope the Braves get to him early, and then Tehran gets to throw some stress-free innings. That's the best case scenario, I guess. Because even though these Cardinals bats are all right-handed, they're just really good against right-handed pitching too. So that's the issue you're looking at. You're kind of balancing those two things.
Yep. Super disciplined, a lot of power. SunTrust Park, though, plays very pitcher friendly for against righties. Man, I gotta ask you this though. Look at you look at Adam Wainwright's results. Like, they actually have been remarkably pedestrian, and that is a compliment to him. I mean, like, I would have thought that Adam Wainwright's numbers would be way worse, but they're not.
Yeah.
It's really fascinating because so I'm pulling it up right now, okay? And I want to get this number. I'm on Baseball Savant. I want to see how many called strikeouts he has this year. If I had to guess, he has to be towards the top of the league.
Yeah.
He has to be.
I mean, because just looking at his chase rate, his swinging strike rate, like you mentioned, under 7% swinging strike rate for the season, under 22% chase rate for the season. Also, not getting first pitch strikes. Not that that matters that much,
Right.
but yeah, I mean, zone swing percentage 60%. I mean, I don't know.
Almost 50% of his strikeouts are called strikeouts this year.
That's outrageous. That's not sustainable, right? Like, there's no way.
No way. I mean, yes, like give it to him. He's always been a crafty pitcher.
Mhm.
Like I won't take that away from him, but I mean, it's hard to fathom that you're going to be getting that many called strikeouts, um, especially against a pretty disciplined team like Atlanta. So I don't know. This kind of just feels like a game that I don't love all around. Like as much as I'm not a fan of Wainwright, I still don't love picking on him, but he is beginning to allow more power. I think it's just Atlanta's one of those teams that stacking them is kind of strange. And uh, what are you doing with the Atlanta bats here? You know, the Donaldsons, the Freemans, the Swansons, the Acuna.
I think I'm just gonna eat the supposed chalk. I would imagine they're chalky. I haven't looked at each of them individually for the main slate, but I have to imagine, yeah, like Acuna's up there.
Yeah.
Freeman's gonna be up there. Yeah, Donaldson as well. But I think they are, if not my favorite stack, they're a top two stack for me easily. Uh, just a guy that's not gonna miss bats. And yeah, could he go out there and get a bunch of called strikes? It's possible, but yeah, I just these prices are way too tough for me to ignore. Freeman at 4,500 is outrageous. Acuna, same thing. Swanson's been hitting a ton better at 4K if he's going to be in the two spot. So
You kind of just have to do it.
yeah, that's what I'm at. Kind of, unless something weird happens or there's some weird lineups that come out, then it's hard to see myself not getting to a ton of Braves.
And the Braves are tied with the Toronto Blue Jays for the highest total on this slate at 5.1. So
Yeah.
uh, they will be popular, but if you're putting balls in play, generally speaking, good things happen. So, all right, Toronto White Sox, Dylan Covey, Marcus Stroman. Stroman's been an interesting case study this year, Jake, because he's actually, and when he's healthy, we knew this, but he's actually done a very good job of limiting runs. I mean, he is a good pitcher, but he's definitely a better real life pitcher than he is fantasy pitcher. However, his swinging strike rate is at least in the double digits this year. And the White Sox are a team that against righties are going to strike out at a very high clip. Uh, I believe their K rate against righties this year has to be towards the top, 25.2%. That ranks, let's see, top 5. So Stroman, can he get the job done here at 7,700? I have interest. I think he's way too cheap, given the guys that are priced similarly to him, like Julio Teheran and Adam Wainwright. Floor's yours.
Yeah, definitely more of a safer option than a guy like Teheran or Wainwright or I don't know, maybe even Trevor Williams or Pineda. Like all these guys are priced in the 7 to 8K range. Swanson as well. So I think he'd be kind of my favorite guy from a raw points perspective. The issue with Stroman right now, we have him at nearly 40% ownership
Yep.
on DK, which is concerning for a guy that doesn't have a ton of upside. Uh, I mean, yeah, I mean, he could have his best start of the season and get you 25, sure, but I think people are just seeing the White Sox seeing the low-ish total against Stroman, and they're just going to fire him up because there's not a lot of quality options elsewhere. So while I think Stroman probably pitches fine here, I don't agree with the ownership. I probably am going to end up well below that.
See, I think he's a very good cash play.
Yep.
If you're going to cash, I think it probably, and we'll get to the rest of the pitchers, but I'd personally be starting cash lineups with Castillo, Stroman,
I think
and
that's
then
probably the right call.
right, and then moving on. Does Stroman lack the upside though? There's no question. Is it possible he goes out there and strikes out 10 because it's the White Sox? Yeah, I mean, I guess. And again, I think he's a good pitcher. He's done a good job of preventing runs in most cases, and generally doesn't allow a lot of power. Actually, the only 3 home runs he's allowed have come over his last 2 games. So, I guess we'll have to see. guess we'll have to see what's going on. I just want to check his velocity, make sure everything's cool. But because his last two starts looked like a little bit of a bump in the road. I think you're right though. If you're getting that much ownership on a guy that doesn't miss that many bats, it's very unlikely that not playing him is going to kill you. Maybe this slate's a bit different because there's not a whole lot of alternative upside and there aren't a lot of pitchers or games. But, mostly Marcus Stroman is a guy that you can fade or at least come in underweight on and not be super concerned about it.
Yeah, I think underweight. I'm not going to outright fade him. I don't think that's necessary. But like if he ends up at 40% and I come in at 20 or 25, I can allocate that 15 to 20% elsewhere to guys that are lower owned, like a Trevor Williams. I know not like sexy options, but like Pineda or even like Swanson or Teheran. So there's just a ton of guys around his price range. And if everyone's gravitating towards one, I think in baseball, it makes sense to at least look at other options when there's a ton of concentrated ownership on one guy.
I think you're right. Dylan Covey got a sexy 7% swinging strike rate. This is my favorite though. Called strike plus swinging strike rate, which is a stat that I've been trying to incorporate a lot more lately. I do think it's very useful. Is not only the lowest on the slate, but it is so much lower than everybody else, not named Dan Straley, who isn't on this. Oh, yes, he is on the slate. Sorry.
No, he's not.
No, he's not.
Yeah, that's a 6:10 Eastern game.
It's
too
that's
bad
right.
he's not.
That sucks.
But because Bauer's not on it either. But
I know. Oh man. All right. Well, anyway, called strike plus swinging strike rate is 22.5%. So that's just god awful, Jake.
Yep. Hard to imagine getting to Dylan Covey here.
Guess what his K minus BB rate against lefties is?
It's got to be terrible.
Negative 16%.
Oh, God.
Yeah. Against righties, negative 3.6%. Now, granted, he's only faced like 60 total batters, but still, like this dude has been. Take it away. You could tell the viewers what we're doing with a guy like Covey and the hitters against him.
So there's going to be a ton of balls in play here for Toronto. I wonder what the odds would be of Covey striking out Eric Sogard. Like, it just like astronomical
1,000 to 1.
Yeah. But anyways, Sogard's 4,400. He's a guy that I like. Absolutely love Rowdy Tellez at 3,600. It's too bad he doesn't have catcher eligibility because you have, they had made if they made a DH spot because you can't play him and Smoke together on DK. So you got to make your choice there. It's a toss up between those two for me. I would imagine Toronto is going to be one of the chalkier stacks. Huge total. Pitcher doesn't miss bats. But I can't really argue against it. I don't see how they don't touch Covey up at least a little bit here. And they're just so cheap on DK.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, the Covey's he's made 4 appearances, 2 starts. He's walked 10 batters and struck out 5. Like, man, that's just really, really heinous. And he's given up 2 home runs because he's only pitched 10 2/3 innings, but he's just been all over the place. One thing that I do want to take a look at before we move on is just to see what his stolen base rates or stolen base numbers look like. Yeah, so pretty average, maybe slightly below average at holding runners. I think the problem, I don't know what type of speed you're getting for Toronto, but what I do know is, if you have Wellington Castillo behind the plate and not McCann, that makes any base running matchup a whole lot better. So I would definitely keep an eye on that. It can make a difference. Let's see, where do they rank in speed this year? The Toronto's got to be pretty low, right? Yeah, they're second lowest in the league.
Yeah, it's Sogard has swiped a couple bags this season, but even he isn't really a huge speed guy.
So is Toronto your top stack or Atlanta? And we have to assume there's going to be quite a bit of ownership here, right?
Yeah, I mean, just the prices alone and the total points to hefty ownership here.
Yeah, like if Danny Jansen's in the lineup, he's probably going to be played by a lot of people, even though he's been so terrible this year.
Yep,
All right.
agreed.
And by the way, do you think any stacks for the White Sox make sense as leverage plays?
Stroman's guy I hate stacking against, so he would be
Mm-hmm.
one where I'll take a Yonder Alonso, maybe a Abreu, but he's 5K. Man, Moncada 5,400.
They're always so expensive. It's
What's going
ridiculous. Their
on?
prices
Yeah,
don't come down.
yeah. So I mean, I'd like to get up to Moncada. I would assume he's gonna be really low owned. Uh, I guess Alonso is just the obvious guy you get leverage with that doesn't break the bank.
All right. Seattle, Minnesota, 2 games to go here. Michael Pineda, Eric Swanson. Swanson, I think, was like a top 12 guy and a top 10 guy in Seattle's system. He has been pretty rough since coming up, and he's allowed 6 and 7 runs in 2 of his last 3 innings. His other was 6 scoreless innings, actually, against Cleveland. Pineda's one of those guys that's just entirely unpredictable. He can go out there and be missing a ton of bats. He can have the ball on a string. And then other times, when he's missing his spots, he can't correct it. Like, brings me back to Francisco Liriano days, where when you see him missing the plate early on, you just know it's going to be a bad day, and you turn your TV off and you stop looking at your computer screen. So what do you make of Michael Pineda and Eric Swanson in this matchup? Feel free to touch on hitters and pitchers.
Yeah, I think tough matchup for both of the pitchers here, from strikeout perspective, power perspective, all that. Mariners around middle of the pack in strikeouts against righties, 23.5%, but ton of power. 241 ISO versus righties for this Mariners active roster, 122
So much
WRC+.
power.
Yeah.
That probably leads the league.
Well, I think the Twins are actually
Are they?
the Twins are right up there, I believe. Yeah, the Twins are at 232. So yeah, they're right
Mariners
above the
lead the league.
Twins and the Astros. Yeah.
Incredible.
Man, so two teams I kind of hate targeting against with pitching. If I had to choose one, I think it would be Pineda, but I'm sure I'm going to end up on some Pineda just because you got to fill out the pitcher spot somewhere. And if I'm not going to a bunch of Stroman, I'll take a guy who at least has some strikeout upside. He can get swings and misses, whereas I'm a little bit worried about Swanson at this point. Are either of these guys getting owned? Let's see.
So Pineda right now is at 21%. So yes.
Swanson at 11. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, for me, I'd probably still give the edge to Pineda, even with the ownership. I would like to just avoid these guys altogether, but it's a 5-game slate. I really like Twins bats here. Rosario and Kepler really stand out to me quite a bit, but even going down this lineup, I think Castro's fine at 3,700 at catcher. I know it's a little bit expensive, but Marwin Gonzalez has shown some things in these last few games. Hasn't been completely terrible as he was the first month plus of the season. So 3,500 is a fine price for him. And yeah, I think the Twins are up there as kind of one of my favorite stacks, which is weird. Don't really love targeting bats in Seattle, but huge totals for a Seattle game where it's only 58 degrees.
Yeah, for sure. Especially coming at, what is it, T-Mobile Park now?
I always lose track of the parks. They change them. It feels like every park changes every 2 years.
I know. The AT&T Park changing was
Yeah.
super frustrating.
I still call it AT&T.
Yeah, right? No, it is T-Mobile. Yeah, it used to be Safeco Field. I'll tell you what, though, Jake. I think the Mariner bats here are really appealing. I don't think they're going to garner that much ownership. Maybe I'm wrong, but for some, I feel like maybe they will. Haniger's up there. I'm trying to.
I'm only seeing
maybe
Haniger.
just Haniger.
Yeah, everyone else that I've searched for so far
I think you're right.
is below 10%.
Yeah. So other than Haniger, they're all. I mean, here's how I see it. Pineda can be good, but he's also allowing 2.39 home runs per nine to righties this year. He's allowed 7 home runs and 16 extra base hits in 119 batters faced. I mean, that is not good. A WOBA just shy of 400, an ISO of 275, a fly ball rate of 46%, a 50% hard hit rate. Like these are not, these are not encouraging numbers. And the most amazing thing, 18% home run to fly ball rate. That's really high when you're getting only 28% ground balls. So Pineda just feels like one of those guys that stacking against him could work. Like last game, he's allowed multiple home runs in 3 of his last 5 starts. Those are the type of guys that are capable of just unraveling entirely that I'm willing to go after. Even though it's a bad park, I think it also says something that the Mariners have a 4.6 run implied total.
I'm seeing even higher than that.
Really?
I'm seeing 4.8 or 4.9 for the Twins, 4.8.
Oh my God, you're right.
Mariners.
Sorry, I had put them in earlier this morning or late last night. I had put them in. You're right. Yeah, they've both come up. That's a very high total for that park.
Yeah. So that was one thing that jumped out to me. You're doing a good job of talking me off Pineda. I think saving me from myself, especially if he's going to be 20%. Like,
hey, I'm not trying to do. I'm just throwing it out there that. Well, you're the one that mentioned Seattle's ridiculous power against righties.
Yeah. Why am I on Pineda again? Like,
I don't know. Maybe because they kind of strike out a decent amount.
Yeah.
But
it's baseball. That's why you're on him, I guess.
Yes, exactly. But man, that total for Seattle, almost a 5-run total, 241 ISO against righties. Pineda has, the ability, the proneness to cough up multiple or 3 home runs in a game. I just keep liking Seattle more and more. I think it'll depend on what the lineup is. And you're going to have to pay a bit for these bats, but they're not crazy overpriced. Like none of them are even 5K on DraftKings. So, I guess. And then on Yahoo, we've got them at Encarnacion 19, Haniger 21. They're pretty expensive there. Narvaez 21. That's tougher that's especially when catchers are when you get some decent catchers at minimum salary on Yahoo all the time, it's tough to get to a $21 Narvaez.
For sure. Yeah, their prices are going to get people off of them on Yahoo, I would imagine.
You want to talk about anything else in this one before we hit Pittsburgh and San Diego and get out of here?
I think we're good.
All right, Jake. Well, start us off. Trevor Williams, Eric Lauer. We've got some pretty low totals here. 3.8 for Pittsburgh against Lauer. The lowest on the slate. And then you've got 4.3 run total for San Diego. This is at Petco Park against Trevor Williams. What do you think about this matchup?
Yeah, I think Lauer's going to be a tough guy to avoid for someone like me who's going to be playing a lot of Castillo on 2-pitcher sites because he's cheap. Like you mentioned, lowest total on the slate against him, 3.8. He's not necessarily on a pitch count. He doesn't go deep into games. Like he doesn't throw more than 80 or 90 pitches, but for 6,800, I think he's 6,800. Yeah, 68.
Yep.
You can deal with that. You need 5 innings and 3, 4, 5 strikeouts somewhere around there. And actually, now that I think of it, I didn't look at this last night, but I think Pittsburgh. Yeah, I talked about them being terrible against lefties.
They have last I looked, they had the highest K rate in the league against lefties. I don't know. It was like 5 days ago.
Yeah. So it's come down a little bit, 26.5% for their active roster.
Their plate appearances are pretty low too. 294.
74 WRC plus,
Terrible.
0.090 ISO. They've been atrocious against lefties in a short sample. That could turn around here. I think I was on with Adam on Monday. That's what it was. They're facing lefty. Adam and I kind of agreed they shouldn't be this bad versus lefties. Bell has looked a ton better.
Yeah.
He's also 5,600, Marte 5,400. So two of the bats you kind of want to target against Lauer with are just super expensive. It's not a great hitter's park. Like, there's just a lot of things pointing me to Lauer. Even in
30% ownership is
yeah,
something else, man.
that's
But
the
it
thing.
is a 5 game slate. Like there's, it's a 5 game slate, and then you have guys like Wainwright and Dylan Covey and Swanson. Like there aren't that many pitchers to choose from.
Right. Like, where else do you go besides Lauer?
It's tough. I know. And the thing is, Lauer has here's what I have an issue with. You had mentioned Stroman, right?
Mhm.
Like not a lot of upside. Lauer has a virtually no ceiling, and that's the one thing that is kind of, concerning to me. He's had 20 fantasy points once this season. It was 20.5, and it came in his first start back in March. Then he's at 1.3, 19, 10, 12, 17, 13, negative 13. That was in cores, though. I'm fine to just erase that one. But I mean, just your mean performance from Lauer is real. It feels like it's going to be in that 10 to 15
Right.
range. So
Yeah.
tough.
So the,
I'll tell you the honest to God truth. I think I would rather, now that I look at this slate and kind of personally can zoom out and we've got a full look at it. I think I'd rather spend the 900 and go to Stroman. Like, I just don't think, like, they're both going to be super popular. I might just take the better pitcher, but
yeah.
wouldn't blame you for taking the savings on Eric Lauer.
No, that's fine. I mean, Stroman's a much better pitcher, real life, and probably for DFS than Lauer. Lauer's just got, I think, a pretty decent situation tonight, and that's why you're seeing similar
Yeah,
ownership.
in good park.
Yeah, I mean, Lauer versus righties, 46% hard contact. Uh, Man, really worrisome. So, like, Cervelli is probably my
What did you
favorite
say
guy.
it was?
46% against
Okay.
righties. Um, yeah, so Cervelli at 3K, I think, is an awesome play for leverage. I would assume he's going to be a guy that people go to for leverage, though. So he's not like he's going to be unowned. What about Williams? I'm trying to see if he's not a guy I look at very often, but he's kind of one of those guys in the Stroman category that he's
Yeah,
better real life, does a good
I'm
job limiting quality contact. It is same pitcher's park, obviously. Um,
I'm definitely willing to go there. I wish he was
yeah.
a little bit cheaper. Like I wish he was 7,500 or
Mhm.
whatever, but it's not crazy. You're right. It's not crazy at all. And I think that the part that's a little bit more appealing is he's going to face a lot of righties. So, Trevor Williams, at least I want Trevor Williams to be facing, a heavier righty lineup. 13.8% swinging strike rate against righties this year, 7% against lefties. Um, it might not be the craziest idea to look at Trevor Williams, assuming the Padres run out, another 6 or 7 righty lineup.
Yeah, So you want a bunch of righties in here, I would think. So the projected lineup looks great for Williams. I don't have an issue with him. I mean, if a bunch of other pitchers fail in this range, like, and you're sitting there with 18 DK points from Williams, you're probably going to be okay, I think. So yeah, I guess the more I look at it, the more I'm probably going to get to Trevor Williams, because the rest of these guys scare me outside of Stroman. But you got to pay more ownership tax on a guy like Stroman.
For sure. I agree with you. I mean, yesterday there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, including the pitcher, 6 righties in the lineup. But your lefties are Greg Garcia, Eric Hosmer, and Austin Allen.
Yeah,
Hardly imposing batters. So, yeah, I think you're probably right here. And you know what? By the way, Eric Lauer bats right, not left. Not that it matters, but just throwing it out there. I think it. Here's the only thing though. It's not like Trevor Williams isn't going to have ownership. Like he's at
yeah,
27% projected ownership. Stroman's at 37 and Lauer's at 30. So there's not that much of a disparity here. There really isn't.
yeah. It's pretty ugly. I think. Like I'm probably just gonna make a big stand on Castillo and then just you know revolving door for my SP2. Like just give me all of them in some
Get the
fashion.
carousel going.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
All right, Jake. Well, any thoughts on bats in this game?
Um, not really. Like, and again, like I'm looking for bats I'd want to target against Williams with, and no one really sticks out. Reyes has been unreal. Machado has, come to life a little bit. So those guys 42, 4,300, but I'd much rather get to some other guys in games or just completely stack a different team. And then they're in the same price range and even more expensive than some of these Atlanta hitters who I love. So going to be hard for me to get to bats against Williams. And then the guys I mentioned against Lauer, Bell, Marte is super expensive, but Cervelli at 3K I also love.
I'm with you. Hey, before you guys head out, hit us with a thumbs up and like the video if you appreciate this content. You like it, you want to see more because it helps us out greatly and we really appreciate it. Subscribe and hit the notification bell so you always know when that fresh new content's going to drop next. Also, you want to check out awesemo.com. Use the promo code MLB Strategy, all one word. You get 50% off your first month. And as always, Jake, they can head over to Yahoo Sports, Daily Fantasy Sports. Use the link that I'm about to drop in chat and get themselves up to $30 in Yahoo Sports rewards points. Just use the promo code Awesemo when they sign up. Not a bad deal, huh?
No, I love it. Yeah. Got to go and get over and play on Yahoo. Not a shortage of slates for a day like today where they're split. If you want to include Bauer and, stack against Dan Straley, feel free to do that over there. They've got some decent contests going on. You can 6-man stack it. Yeah, it's a pretty fun format, and you're not going up against a lot of pros. You're not going up against 150 lineups is the most important thing. There's no CSV edit, so a lot more love and care goes into building your lineups when you're hand building.
All right. Any final thoughts before we get out for the morning?
No, thanks for watching, guys. We will be back starting early. I think you mentioned it, but we're starting early on the deeper dive with you and Adam. And then Chris and I will be taking you up until lock. We'll start that at 5:45 Eastern time.
That's right. So keep an eye out for corners from Chris to drop around 3 p.m. Eastern. And then you've got the deeper dive at what are we doing? Is it the start time is 6:40, right?
Yeah.
6:40. So I guess we'll just do because it's only 5 games is the thing.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Let's figure it out right now. How do we want to do it? What do we want to do? I guess we could do 4:40 and 5:40.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
I mean, in all seriousness, between 5 games, we'd probably, and this is not with motivation to shortchange anyone or interest to short, but we could probably start the deep dive at 5. 40 minutes on 5 games seems like we're allowing pretty much a good amount of time, right?
Yeah, I mean, whatever you guys want to do, right? But
right. Well, you guys could still start it at 5:40. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's fine. Whatever works.
Anyway, we'll let you guys know. If you subscribe and hit the notification bell, you'll find out regardless. So have a good rest of the day. We'll see you back here tonight, live before lock, deeper dive, all that good stuff coming up. Good luck on the early slate as well.